Unemployment is becoming a serious problem. The university drew in thousands of highly educated residents, but the city never developed the industries or office jobs needed to employ them. Because highly educated residents are taking any job they can find, people with less education are being shut out of the job market entirely. On top of that, the city doesn't produce the basic materials its industries need, causing major shortages in concrete, metals, electronics, and other essentials. Those shortages only make the city's unemployment problem even worse. The Lithia Bay Fishing Co-op is willing to invest in a new seafood factory, but only if the city expands their road access, strengthens fire coverage in the area, and designates the land for long-term industrial use. The city signs off on the co-op's conditions and at the same meeting approves a broader push to open more land beside the Odin Industrial Park. The plan is to zone part of it for stone extraction and the rest for light to medium industrial use. So today we're going to expand the Lithia Bay Fishing Co-op with a new seafood factory, improve our fire coverage, develop a new industrial center, and see if we can finally tackle unemployment. Let's jump in. Alright, so let's start over here by our fishing co-op. The first thing we need to do is extend our road access all the way into an external connection, because right now we only have one, and that's not very good. So let's buy the tiles we need, and it looks like we're going to need this one and this one. Now we'll grab one of these rural highways, and I actually do want it to go up the hill rather than just follow along this road right here, because this land looks like it'd be prone to flooding. And actually this land right here is water, so that makes the decision that much easier. Now we're going to use the curved road tool along with snap the guidelines, and we're just going to snap right into this roundabout. Now we can delete this little roundabout right here, and that gives us some weird jankiness with the road that we're going to fix really quickly. And just like that, we finally have our second external connection, and now we're ready to expand the Lithia Bay Fishing Co-op. Let's actually identify what our problem is. So if we open up InfoLoom and we click on Workforce and Workplaces, we can get the data for all of our positions filled, our positions open, along with where our unemployment is concentrated. So we can see with highly educated, there's actually 619 of them that are unemployed, but they're also the largest group. And as long as we're creating the right highly educated jobs, our uneducated will actually get better as well, because right now, a bunch of highly educated people are taking uneducated jobs. And I believe we should be able to see this if we click on our fishing co-op. So this has 50 uneducated positions, 37 poorly educated positions, and 12 educated positions. Now the beauty of InfoLoom is that if we scroll all the way down, we can actually see how many overeducated employees we have. And then if we click on it, it'll expand the menu. So there's 39 well and highly educated citizens taking uneducated jobs. And there isn't a single uneducated citizen in here. Now that could just be a result of how well our education is working in Lithia Bay, but still ideally if we have 447 people who are uneducated, ideally they go to the jobs that are best suited for them. Now let's close all of this and get to work on the seafood factory. Now for good old Skipper Jim here, what we're going to do is expand his waterfront just a bit more. And we need enough room to get the fish and chippery seafood factory in. And it's a pretty hefty building. It's definitely not small by any means. And we also want to make sure that there's enough room from the storage area to the front of this building for the loading docks. Otherwise, we're only going to create traffic problems. So just looking at this, I'm going to say we probably need to go out about 21 or 22 units. Using Move It, we're going to go into our filters and we're going to disable plants, decals, props, surfaces, and that should be everything we need. Then we're just going to highlight all of this right here and set it all to be the same height as this node. Now to actually unlock the building itself, we need 100,000 fish goods produced, along with 5 of each of the fishing buildings. I don't want to add in 5 of each, and we already have the fish goods produced. So I'm just going to use Find It. Now I didn't really give myself enough room, so we're going to expand the top part of this. And after a bit of messing around with the road network, I believe I finally have something that should fit the building with a lot of space. It definitely seems like we do. What I really want though is I want to place 2 of these buildings and I want to pull them together. I feel like having 2 fronts for this building just makes it feel a bit more grand and a bit more integrated with the environment. Now the only issue is we have this parking right here, so we need to do something about it. And I'm thinking as long as we move this in the right way, we should be able to blend the parking in a way that feels somewhat natural. So I'm thinking this right here should probably work, but let's take a quick look at it and make sure nothing stands out is overly crazy or janky. And there's nothing I can see, so that works for me. Let's delete these fences. And honestly, we'll probably just have to delete the parking in general, and we'll make our own dedicated parking. We'll keep all of this because this is the loading docks, but this parking right here will go. And really my main goal with this is to make this super easy to process all this fish. So the fish is being caught from right here and over here. They bring that fish all the way into our main buildings. It gets stored here, and then it can be immediately transferred to this building right here. So it's a very nice, close setup. Now I want to grab the color from this storage building, and I want to paste it onto here. Kind of just like that. I'd say that's pretty much perfect. The only thing I don't like is this overly blue security gate. So let's tone that back down to a simple gray. And what is that? Where does this come from? Okay, I have no idea what that is, but I'm going to learn to live with it. And I'm going to fix the other security gate over here. And now we definitely need to add some key walls around this because it's starting to look a little bit crazy. Now really, no matter where we add the parking, it's going to be slightly disruptive for the traffic in this area. So I think what we're going to do is grab this one-way perpendicular parking alley. I'm going to turn on parallel mode, and we'll go about 0.25 units. And then I just want to snap onto the side of this building. And now we're going to use a one-way alley and grab from right here and just do a loop. That way they're not pouring onto this road, because this road is, being used primarily by trucks, and I want to try and maintain that as much as possible. And actually, we do have our first truck coming in. That's great. What do they have? 25 tons of fish, and we're already producing some food as well, so 23 tons in this one, and 25 tons in this one. Not too bad. And I added a few one-ways to this parking lot. That way you're not trapped in this giant loop. You can break free any point in time. Now there's one big thing that we need to do, and that's take one of our concrete surfaces. I think we'll go with this one right here. We are officially ready to move on to the next stage, and that is our brand new industrial district, which will go here. Now we're going to want to keep all of our industrial businesses under this line right here. And that's just because we don't want the pollution to spill up the hill. The goal is to develop this in the future, and we want to be able to put some residential down, and we can't do that if we're polluting everything. So I think what we're going to do is grab any road, let's say our rural highway, with our air pollution view back on. We're going to try and follow these lines. And this is essentially a guideline to myself saying don't go past this area. Now I'm looking at this road right here and noticing that I've done quite a few things, so I'm just going to delete this and then fix it up a tiny bit. And what we'll do is we'll stub this off right here. Now this road needs somewhere to connect into, and I think the first easiest connection point will be right here. To make things fairly straightforward and simple, we're going to start with a rough layout, and then as we add our industrial in, we'll make adjustments as needed. And before we do that, I actually want to make a quick adjustment to our local storage yard and our recycling center. Now I don't really like how the recycling center and the storage yard share the same road, and that's just mostly because I feel like the recycling center should have its own private road, and I don't want freight traffic to use this path right here. Instead, I want them to use this one. So we're going to get rid of all these trees. We'll curve this road right here into this one. And this might seem a bit silly, and like I'm going back on what I just said, but I'm also going to connect this back into here now. Really, I just didn't want this to be the dominant movement, but we do kind of need this access to serve these areas over here much better. So we're just going to curve directly into this road. We're going to try and come in at a 90. All right, there we go. So now we have access again. And now we're gonna start building out our grid, and we're gonna go 10 by 20. All right, and for now, this is gonna be our rough layout. There's two things that I really want to avoid. One was getting way too close to this bridge, just to make it slightly more safe. And the second one was getting too close to our train tracks. Although right here, I kind of failed on that. So we'll need to make sure the industrial is kept inside this lot and doesn't expand beyond it. Now that I'm looking at this, I see something that's kind of odd, and I'm not sure if you see it too. It's right here. What is going on with this bridge? This has got to be the ugliest bridge I've ever seen. And there we go, now it's slightly better. Now to get our industrial in, I actually want to avoid zoning at this time, because last time I did that it turned out awful, and I had to go back and replace everything anyways. So this time, let's just start by plopping some things in. And we're going to look at our production tab to see what we actually need. So starting with our raw materials, we won't touch forestry today. Wow, we have a massive deficit in wheat. Same with metal ore, only a small coal deficit. But we do have a significant deficit in stone, and that's making our concrete production just that much worse. So let's start with some stone mining. There's a few locations where I think stone mining is going to fit really well. For example, I think this one right here, and then this right here. I want to keep it far away from our train tracks because I imagine the mining would probably create some issues with the train itself. Now I'm not sure if 2 is going to be enough, so let's have a third one, and we're going to place that right here. Now I'm just going to quickly go and expand all of these out. It's actually nice to see that a lot of people are coming into the city. What's not nice to see is the traffic problem that we've created. So for right now, I'm not going to worry about it though. This could just be induced demand for the new road, and it could fade over time. If it continues to be a problem though, we'll start to fix it. Now I did simulate for a bit because I wanted to see what these buildings would produce after some time has passed. So this one back here is producing 13 tons, 19 tons, and 13 tons. I have a hunch that we're not even close to our deficit. We've definitely made a big dent, but we still have about 30 tons, and I want to make sure that we have somewhat of a surplus, because as we expand the city, the houses, the industrial, everything will need the actual materials to upgrade and level up. Now it looks like we have a slight problem with our power, so let's go over to our windmills and see if we can fix them. So the main issue is that they can't produce enough electricity to match demand. So I think what we're going to do is retire some of these turbines, and instead we'll replace them where the production would be much higher. And now, just like that, we should have access to power again, and we're now producing 48 megawatts, and we're only consuming 37. Although I think it's almost time to stop with the short-term fixes and implement a much bigger solution. So maybe we'll do that next time. We still weren't producing enough stone, so I expanded it a bit more, and then I got an alert saying that something was passing through Lithia Bay. And apparently it's a tornado. Now thankfully, it's nowhere near us, but that could have devastated Lithia Bay if it came anywhere close to us. So now we only have 10 tons of a deficit, but as these buildings level up, they'll produce more. So I think for the meantime, this is where we're going to call it on stone. Now I think what I'm going to do next is actually going to make that deficit even worse. So let's get rid of this alleyway right here in the middle, and we're going to grab our ground earth building. The terrain is a bit rough right now, so my best solution for that is to place it down here. We'll use move it and we'll pull it back just a bit. And then on the other side, let's get a bit of parking in. Now for the rest of this area, I'm going to go through, I'm going to plop some warehouses, I'm going to plop some industrial, and we're just going to quickly get that done. All right, and that's what we're gonna call it for plopping. We need to get a whole bunch of parking in, but I'm actually interested to know how many jobs we've added. So first, let's pull this district back. And we have about 2,000 jobs in this area right here. And now we can expand our industrial park all the way till right about here. And it's time for the big reveal. We have added basically 1,900 jobs. Surprisingly, most of the positions available are actually concentrated in the educated bracket. Now let's get a whole bunch of parking in, and I left the space open on these roads right here. That way we could run parking through it. So we're just going to use a mix of our parking alleys and our actual parking lots, and we'll go through and add in a bunch of parking. All right, and that is a whole bunch of parking. Our industrial site is looking pretty good. Now we still have to meet one of the fishing co-op's demands, and that's for more fire coverage. In fact, I think that'd be pretty essential for this entire area. It's a massive industrial park, and the closest fire protection, I believe, is over here by our university, with the second one being over here, and we're having power issues again. Ooh, that's not good. But it has nothing to do with our consumption or our production, so we just have a bottleneck somewhere. So let's turn all of these off, except for the low voltage electric cables, because we can take a look and see where our bottleneck is. I'm not actually able to see one. I think the real problem is that we only have one transformer in this entire city. So if we add a second one, that really should help. In fact, I would think that this area right here would need its own transformer station, just given how much power it's going to be pulling. And I think we're just going to add that in right here. Now we just got to grab our power lines and connect them up. And now last but not least, let's actually check to see if our high voltage power lines have a bottleneck. And yeah, it definitely seems like they do. And that all comes down to this area right here. It honestly makes perfect sense. I don't know why I didn't consider over here first. I think how I solved this previously was by adding in a connection or a power line from right around here somewhere. So here it is. Is this still connected in? Yeah, it looks like it's still connected in. So clearly there's just a bigger issue at play here. And it seems like the way to solve this is to pull from somewhere around here. And then we'll just send these power cables all the way up to the top of this hill and connect directly into this road. And that should give the power an alternative path. And I decided to fix it all up just a tiny bit. It was clearly disrespected by me. Now it's slightly less disrespected, and we shouldn't have any issues. And is everything working? Let's find out. Yes, it is. Perfect. That is just great to see. I think the truth is, though, that I just have to stop putting off the upgrade for the power. Anyways, so like I was saying, we still have to meet the fishing co-op's demands, and we're going to build some more fire coverage right here. We are going to do a bit of grading. We're still going to try to respect the hill, though, unlike the electricity cables and all of those turbines. And that tiny bit of grading just gives us a nice, easy access point. Now, we need to get one of these fire stations that have the disaster response unit. So I think we're going to go with the Southwestern Fire Station. And let's quickly check its upgrades. So we have the training tower, we'll take it. We have the disaster aid office, we're definitely going to take it. And then we have one firefighting helipad, which will give us one helicopter. We're definitely going to take it. And then we'll just grab a wide alley with sidewalks, and we'll connect right into this point. Now, ideally, if we can, I'd like to get more connections for our fire station. I don't really feel like cul-de-sacing it. And because this connection right here leads to our highway, if there's a chance we could make this just slightly more effective, I'm going to take it. And I think our best way is just to connect directly into here. Kind of steep at 5%, but it's not too bad. And then last but not least, I want to do something here with our storage yard and our recycling center. Really what I want to do is not make this feel so square-like and so confined to the space that it's in. So we're going to grab our retaining wall. We'll apply it to the right side of this track all the way up until right about here. And now with our trees gone, we will do a tiny bit of grading. So we'll take this height, pull it all the way back, and that should help us get a nice smooth retaining wall. And then we'll take a wide alley. From right about the middle, we'll send it all the way up. And now I do want this to be functional, but we really don't need any more capacity for this building. We're perfectly fine on stored garbage and processing speed. So to make this slightly different and functional at the same time, let's go into our static ploppable service buildings. We'll grab one of these hazardous waste collection points. We'll place that right there. Then we'll use the landfill's main building, and we'll align that kind of like this right here. Now I want to take the recycling center's color and paste it on both these buildings. Now we can take some of our modular zoning blocks, grab one of these 1x6s, and just snap it to these garages right here. And then for this one, we will need another road. So now this will actually draw traffic, and it actually does something for our economy in our city. But I don't want it to feel like it's just some random industrial building. I want it to feel like it's part of the recycling center. So to make sure we actually do that, let's go into Find It. We'll go into Props, and we're just going to search up Random. So then in our park props, we have 3 different piles of random stuff. So this one right here is our rubble, this is our wood, and then this one right here is our mixed. We're going to start with our mixed. We'll use our grid tool. We're going to bring the spacing down all the way to 2.6 for now. We'll click once, drag to the right, and get something kind of like that. Now what we need is actual garbage. And this one's just a bit too big, but I think a few of these smaller ones are going to work really well. I'm going to turn off snap to the surface of an object because I don't actually want it to be on top of the object. I want it to be on the ground. So now when you move around and try and place it, it stays on the ground instead. Now let's add one more thing, and that's just going to be some piles of ore. Really, the only reason why I want to add it is just to vary up the colors in this area. And there we go. Now I see one quick problem. This needs to be flipped around. Now the industrial buildings will actually go inside the garages rather than going inside this back. Now we just need to do our storage yard. And for this one, I'll keep it a bit more simple. There's really only so much we can expand. Now I want to quickly take a look and see where we're at for our production. So now we have an even bigger deficit of stone, but our concrete deficit has went down significantly, and other things are still looking a bit rough, so we'll have to work on these over time. Now with all of that, let's do a bit of detailing. And for detailing, I just want to make our industrial park feel a bit dusty, a bit rough looking. And then for our fish and chippery seafood factory, I just want to make it feel more integrated within the actual fishing industry. So with all of that, let's jump into detailing. And that's going to do it for detailing. I kind of went a bit lazy, and that's just mostly because the supply chain creator pack is coming out December 3rd. So I could have went really crazy and detailed everything and spent hours doing it. I feel like some of this might get a rework once that pack comes out. Even with that lazy approach, I am really happy with how it turned out. There's one thing that I always really dislike, and that is the texture or the surface from these stone mining companies. So on this one over here, I made it kind of dirt. It doesn't really make sense, but at least I can look at it. For this one, I used these stain decals, and I was really hoping to make it feel like there's actually some difference in the texture. I don't know if I accomplished it, to be honest, but it's still enough for me to be happy with, given that this stone texture is just awful. And then for our seafood factory, I used the ploppable buildings to add in a few extra access points. The rest was just mostly making it a bit dirty. Now let's take one quick look at our production just to see where we're at. And our concrete deficit is insane. Adding all of that industrial really made this worse. But how about our unemployment? Surely it must be in a better place. 4.7%. That's perfect. And if we open InfoLoom and take a look at our workforce, our highly educated now only have 1.4%, and it's now mostly our uneducated. And maybe we'll change up our tax system just to help them out a bit. So for the uneducated, let's go 6%. Poorly educated will go 7, educated will go 8, and then these two right here will just remain at 10. We're also going to stop squeezing our industrial so hard. Right now we're making $146,000 per hour. Let's drop this down to 6%. I feel like that's a pretty good number. And for our office, let's also drop this down to 6%. And we'll do the same thing for our commercial. And of course there's a forest fire. Now before we wrap up, let's add in a quick bus connection into our university. Now we don't have any bus lanes open, so I think we're just going to use our industrial lane, and we'll add one more stop. Reason being that our industrial line has the least amount of vehicles on it, so it shouldn't be too big of a deal if we take up one more small space there. Now we're just going to send this all the way over to our university, and I think we'll make a stop right here, and then we'll just send this back to the bus station. We'll call this line 6, station to university. We'll keep it really, really cheap at $1. And for now, we'll set this to 4 vehicles. If we need to change it in the future, we will. And we'll make the line a nice cream color. And it seems like we're out of vehicles. So let's go to our bus depot. And we're going to add on one extra garage, and we'll do that right there. And that should fix all of our capacity issues. And now the notification is gone. We're good to go. And then one last piece of feedback that we got for this new area in the university is that there's no direct pedestrian connection. The reason why we don't have a direct connection is just I don't see a way to do it without doing some crazy things. What we can do though is we could wrap around this road right here and then send a pedestrian path somewhere along here. And now at the very least, they have a slightly shorter path to get to the university. And last but not least, the new name for the university is the Lithia Bay Maritime University. And with that, let's jump into a quick before and after. And that's a wrap. This was a bit of a short one because halfway through, I ended up getting really sick. I'm only now just feeling a bit better. Either way, if you made it this far, thanks for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. Huge thanks to all of our amazing Patreon and YouTube members, Jake Hill, Gary Key, Deku, Freya Stark, Ganger, Griffin, Delpha Supreme, Javante Mormon, Mihai B, Canyon Tiger, Jay Stokes, Middleveen, Vansky, Just a Random American, Bryce Shaddix, Chris Nolan, Menriam. I seriously cannot thank everyone enough. If you want to help support the channel, get get sneak peeks or explore the saves for yourself, you can join us over on Patreon or YouTube. If you haven't already, a like, comment, and subscription really go a long way. And other than that, I'll see you in the next one.